Welcome into the Behind the Frenzy podcast. I'm your host, Dean Holzwarth, joined by Andy McDonald.
How we doing, Dean?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Another week, and we just keep creeping towards the end of the season. It seems to be coming faster and faster, and honestly, I feel like every year I say the same thing with that being the case. Like, it just seems like the end of the season gets here so quick, and we wait so long for football. But it is the best time of the year.
It is. Yep, 2 weeks remaining. Still conference titles at stake this week. As we kind of dive into our spotlight games and kind of talk about some takeaways from Week 7. Not to jinx anything, Andy, but we have been dry for the first 7 weeks.
I'm sure that's going to do something to us, Dean, and I will have to make sure we bring that up on the next one if it does happen.
So my apologies. I did look at the weather for Friday, and it's supposed to be actually mostly clear.
I love it.
So if we go through a whole regular season without any rain or hail or wind or tornadoes or thunderstorms like last year. If you remember, we had a lot of those last year. We should actually be pretty blessed.
Yeah, we'll follow up and see where we're at, when it comes down to those final couple of weeks, and we're like begging for it not to be 0 degrees outside. But, yeah, you can't complain. I mean, the last time it was this warm in October for the first 2 weeks of it, like every day. I mean, the last couple of days were a little chilly, but like, the sun's still out and it's nice out. So
yeah, but even last week I saw you in shorts.
Yeah, I did. I wore shorts out there on the sideline.
Have you been shorts every week?
I have not worn jeans yet. Yeah, this entire season. Now, one of the nights I did regret that because it got pretty cold, but so far been that way.
You would think we lived in California.
Yeah,
but we are in Michigan, and crazy things happen.
It's very true.
Okay, a couple things. Let's talk about, first of all, I think the most exciting game of Week 7 was West Catholic and Forest Hills Eastern.
Yeah, no doubt.
Kind of fighting for first place in their conference. Forest Hills Eastern led late, scored a touchdown, and West Catholic comes back, and Landon Smith kicks a 38-yard field goal to win it.
Yeah, anytime you can walk it off and get a win, that's pretty impressive. And I think we talked a lot last week about how important that was, and Landon Grove has not had 3 losses yet at West Catholic, so they were trying to kind of avoid one of his worst seasons, I guess you could say. I mean, they're still competitive, but and they had a tough schedule as well. But, yeah, they were able to get the job done. I think it's a big win for them just because they're trying to get themselves to the playoffs too, and I think that would get them in. But with Forest Hills Eastern, I don't think it's like end-all, be-all for them. I know that they're trying to prove themselves this year as being a program that's kind of like, going to be competitive every year. They've done a great job over there. And anytime you can play at the school like West Catholic to the end, it's a heartbreaking loss, but I think it says a lot about where they're at right now too.
Yeah, and they've had a few of those heartbreaking losses the past couple of years. South Christian, obviously, last year in the playoffs. And, it's just a team like we talked about before, like just trying to take that next step. And who knows, this might provide some motivation, believing that they should have won that game.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, going into the playoffs, you want to be playing your best football. There's no question about that. I mean, I'm sure that none of them were hanging their heads too low after losing a game like that. So I think going into the postseason, these are 2 teams that you got to watch out for, and that's why they're playing meaningful games like this at the end of the season.
Yep. Unique Christian, another team that has showed no signs of slowing down. They play, they're kind of a rival, South Christian, at Granville High School. It's a 24-13 game, I think, at half, and Unity ends up winning 50-21.
Yeah, no, and the question I have for you, I mean, like, coming into this year, did you think that Unity was going to be this team that they are right now?
No, I mean, they weren't one of the teams I feel like to watch because, they were 3-6 last year, and talking to Craig Tibby earlier in the season, he said, he had a lot of juniors who were going to become seniors, got some experience, and so he felt pretty good about the way the program was kind of headed, and, they've been one of the top teams in our area this year.
It's one of those things you never know if it's coach speak or if it's real, but it was very real. Again, like, so hard to tell in high school who graduates and who comes back and everything else and who's going to be good, but they have been very impressive. And, I mean, when you have a season like that last year and you're able to kind of just push to the side and get back to where they were before that, it's really impressive. And I think they're a team that could possibly be at Ford Field at the end of the season. So.
Yeah, they have a great run game, and their defense is solid, and they were able to contain Carson Viss a little bit, and South Christian is kind of a team on the little slide right now.
No doubt.
They've lost back-to-back games, maybe 3 or 4.
It's 3 in a row.
3 in a row. Forest Hills Central, Zeeland East.
After how we were talking about him, it seemed like they couldn't lose a game just because of the way that Viss plays quarterback. But I mean, again, nobody likes to blame anything on injury. I don't know how he's feeling. None of this is. I'm not a doctor. But I'm just based off what I heard. He did get hurt a few games ago.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if he's been playing through that injury or what it is, but it is pretty crazy that they've lost their last 3 games the way they started. I also don't think anybody expects them to go undefeated this season.
Correct.
But I do think that they're a better team than how they're playing right now. And, again, you want to be playing your best football towards the end of the year. They got to kind of figure that out before the playoffs start here.
Yeah. And I think that we talked about this before, just how tough. Let me see. What the conference that they're in is.
Oh, boy.
How come I am blanking? Sorry. Okay, gold.
Okay,
We
gold.
talked about how difficult that conference was.
Mhm.
And if you look at that conference, every team except for Wyoming has a winning record right now.
Yeah.
And if we look at this week, South Christian plays Zeeland West.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Of course, it comes down to something like that. It just makes sense. But their schedule doesn't get any easier.
No.
You're going to have to beat an even better team than probably some of the teams they've played the past few weeks. So, yeah, it's a challenging conference to be in. It's with all the changes that have been going on in high school football, it's hard to remember sometimes who's playing where anymore. But,
Right.
yeah, that's it's awesome that – I don't think anybody from our perspective wants it to not be competitive, so it's exciting that it's like that.
Yeah. And adding to that, I kind of looked to the last week of the regular season, and they play Catholic Central.
That's
So,
of course.
You obviously want to build, South Christian's been to the state finals the last 2 years. You want to build some momentum toward the playoffs. But, South Christian's really.
And Catholic Central's hungry right now, too.
Yeah.
They want to get their season. I feel like all season they've been trying to find their identity a little bit. They're not going to lay down for them either. South Christian's got to cut out for them going into the season for sure. But if there was one player you were going to bet on in our area that could handle that and probably get the job done, you'd say Carson Viss. I know it's been a tough few weeks for them, but I would expect him to make both these games competitive. They're not going to lay down either.
Yeah, 100%. One note from a game last week, Montague and Fremont.
Yeah.
Final score looked more like a boys basketball score, like we're
Crazy.
already into to the winter here. 70-64.
It's unbelievable.
A new team scoring record at the home field at Montague.
Montague's had some good offenses in the past, but 70
No.
points is ridiculous. I don't care what defense you're playing against, and the fact that Fremont was able to score 64 is pretty impressive too.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of the highest scoring game. Yeah, 100% highest scoring game in the area this year.
I don't think there's anything even close to it. I haven't heard of it, so
No,
maybe I'm off, but I don't think there's been anything even close to that.
No, and Montague's Delvin Dean rushed for over 300 yards in that game.
It's impressive.
And for Montague,
300 yards. Think about that.
yeah, that's
I don't know what he was averaging per carry. You hand the ball off every time. He had to be going for close to 10 yards if you have 300 yards in a game.
Yeah.
Unless he got, 50 carries, but it's hard to say.
Yeah, he looked like the Boise State running back.
Yeah, they've been talking about him a lot lately, that's for sure.
So Montague improves to 3-4 on the year, and they kind of kept their playoff hopes alive with that win, and they have Manistee coming up this week.
For sure.
So, okay, well, let's dive into our spotlight games for the week. Let's start with Muskegon and at Byron Center.
Yeah, that's a big game. It's crazy that we're talking about this, but Muskegon just trying to get themselves in the playoffs, and with a 3-3 record, and obviously they've had their weird season with not playing people different weeks, and it's unlike anything I've ever seen before going on over there with them not being just the dominant power.
Yeah.
And Byron Center is a team that is 6-1. They're not going to just go away for anybody. They have yet to beat Muskegon, I believe you told me before this.
Yep.
So,
They've played each other 3 times, and they have failed. They used to be in the Black a few years back, and they played each other in the regular season, and they have not beat them yet.
and being the name, Byron Center just being in this conversation, everything's kind of new for them in general. So it's just another thing to prove. Get over a team that you haven't been able to beat before. I'm sure Shane's gonna have his guys ready. They know they need that win. If you want one that means a lot to both schools, that's definitely one to pay attention to on Friday, I would say.
100%. If we talk about Byron Center, they are 1 field goal away from being unbeaten right now.
Yeah, it's. They've been so impressive this season. So impressive.
Muskegon has not missed the postseason, the state tournament, since 1999.
That's crazy.
So that streak's, it could be in jeopardy.
Yeah.
Depending on playoff points and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
We did want to give a shout out to Coach Shane Fairfield. When they beat Puffer last week, he became the winningest coach in the storied history of Muskegon football. That was victory number 157 for him.
It's unbelievable. He's the kind of guy you can talk to, and he'll take the time to give you a real answer. He's not one of the guys going to kind of beat around the bush. I always have liked Shane. Every conversation I've been able to have with him and the relationships he's able to have with those players out there at Muskegon, gets those guys to play in and year out. He's the kind of guy you root for no matter what. Not like most of these games I don't have a rooting interest in. None of them I really do, but he's one of the kind of guys that when they go out there, you want to see him do well, and I'm happy to hear that for him. And it's awesome when anybody can stick around at a program for that long, especially at the high school level. It's super unique. You don't see it too often. So
yeah, the one thing I appreciate about Shane is I've interviewed him after the state finals wins and losses, and they've obviously had more losses than wins, but he's always been super respectful, super humble when they win. Able to answer the tough questions when they lose.
Right.
And obviously the things that he's done for that program has been pretty remarkable.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, speaking of that conference, real quick, Byron Center trails Mona Shores by 1 game. Obviously, Mona Shores still undefeated. So, what Byron Center is going to need is to beat Muskegon, and then they're going to hope for a Mona Shores loss against Muskegon Reese Puffer to give them a share of the conference championship. So still something to play for.
Reese Puffer's not an easy team to get by either. So I mean that I would expect Mona Shores to win that game, but it is something to play for and something to hope for. I think either way, Byron Center will be up for that game and ready to go. But Mona Shores is one of those teams that I think we expect to see later in the season or hope to see at Ford Field. So
yeah, I don't know if there'll be an empty seat at Byron Center. We know how that community kind of rallies around their football team, and I have friends in Byron Center, and their kids are on the team, and it's a great community for like I said, supporting all sports at Byron Center, but especially the football team.
On these Friday nights when we're running around, we usually have a couple games we have to go to. Byron Center was one of the second games I had to go to earlier this year. It was their homecoming, and I couldn't find the gate to get into the field. It took me like 5 to 10 minutes of just walking around trying to find the gate because there's so many people there. So, yeah, they're going to have no problem getting the support they need on Friday night. That's for sure.
Yep. Okay, Andy, let's turn to our next spotlight game, Holland Christian at Northview.
How about this Northview
This
team?
one does have conference title implications.
Sure does. I mean, 2 names that since I've been covering this stuff, I haven't really talked about that much. And it's exciting that they're both playing for something like this. I mean, Northview, I don't know if they went undefeated before, but
I think their best season was 1977. I think that was that 8-1 season when they only had 9 games.
Exactly. I mean, you just said 1977. I mean, this is completely new territory for them. It's awesome to see. And I mean, just the fact that they get to play for this much at the end of the year, it's awesome for them. It's hard to say what to expect in the playoffs because, again, don't really know a lot about them playing there because yet I haven't really had a chance to cover them. But yeah, it's a big one for Holland. Holland Christian needs this one to stay alive in this race too, trailing by a game.
It's the last conference game, so if they win, they get a share of it with Northview. That's
awesome. So yeah, I mean, the fact that they have the chance to play for that as well is definitely something that needs to be said. Holland Christian's had a great season too, and I think it's just 2 teams that have proved throughout the season that they're the best in their area, and now they're going to meet for something that matters for it all. So it's one of those games that you like. I don't think you would have circled this one coming into the season on the calendar, at least from our perspective. I think both the people inside these locker rooms knew how good they were, and now they get the chance to play for it all. So
Northview
a share.
Yeah, Northview is definitely proving it. We just found out from sports director Jack Doles that Ryan Oshnock was named the Detroit Lions Coach of the Week.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, it's anytime you're able to get that honor, it's a good one, and rightfully so. When you're doing as well as they've been doing and picking up the wins they've been picking up, it's nice to get recognized. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting to note that both teams finished with a losing record last year.
Yeah.
So the growth of this program and the turnaround that both programs have experienced is pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's something we hope to see in the future. I think more because again, it's been a lot of the same names since I've been covering high school football here. I've been doing it for 6 years now, and it's awesome to see some new names there, and I hope they make it far in the playoffs because I would love to cover some new stories, new teams, stuff like that. So I think everybody would be rooting for that. So it's kind of like I mean, like the Tigers. I feel like everybody was rooting for them because they haven't been there in forever, right? Like the Lions when they made it, stuff like that. Yep. Whenever it's the teams that that don't always make it every year, you want to see them do well. So
yeah, you don't want the same familiar names every year.
No, it gets dry. I mean, those schools want to see.
Yeah, people love an underdog.
Yeah, for sure.
Northview gave up 3 points to defending state champion Catholic Central last week in that low-scoring 12-3 win.
Unbelievable. And like the offense, like I said, the couple times I've covered them this year, has been so electric, and they've been able to put up so many points at times. the fact that they can win a game when it's 12-3 and it's that tight too, that says a lot about how good they really are.
Yeah,
So
it proves that they can win by scoring 40 some points, and they can also win by playing really good defense.
for sure.
Holland Christian almost had a little slip up last week.
Yeah.
They had to rally to beat Thornapple Kellogg 43-42 in what turned out to be a shootout.
No doubt. I mean, it's a lot of points to put up. If you had to pick in this game, who would you pick? It's tough.
I think I would lean Northview. Obviously, Holland Christian has had a great season, and I think, like we just talked about, they've showed that they can win on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
But Holland Christian's not going to be a pushover.
Yeah, no, I don't think this will be a game that's a blowout by any means, but I think they match up well. I think that Northview does have the edge, though, and I just think there's a little bit more for them to be undefeated and have one of their best seasons that they've ever had. Maybe the best season they have ever had would be pretty impressive. So
yeah, it's definitely been fun to watch.
Yeah.
Our last spotlight game, Kalamazoo United at Parchment.
Mm-hmm.
These are two teams in the SWAC Lakeshore Conference, and both teams right now are at the top of the conference standings. Last conference game, so this one's for all the marbles.
Yeah, to be able to, I mean, again, these meaningful matchups towards the end of the season, and Kalamazoo United and Parchment, they both haven't been like that good in the past. So again, two teams we're talking about that aren't usually that good. I was able to cover Kalamazoo United a couple weeks ago, and they definitely have some pieces on offense that make that team go. They can score, and they can score fast when they get it going right. Again, both being 6-1 as well, it's about as even as you can get. You look at the rest of that conference, nobody else really near them, so they're kind of the two dominant teams that are towards the top of the standings there.
Yeah, they've avenged a lot of losses from last year to teams that beat them last year.
Mm-hmm.
Parchment has scored nearly 300 points this season and holding their opponents to less than 100, and they've had 3 shutouts.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Pretty impressive. Kalamazoo United, they've won 4 in a row. I think their only loss is to Lawton, and that team's kind of leaned on their defense. 4 shutouts in the season. They've only given up 64 points in 7 games.
Again, when you can do it on both sides of the ball, that definitely helps a lot. And 64 points throughout a whole season. We're talking about a game earlier where there was 70 points and 64 points for Montague and Fremont. So to be able to hold a team to that low of a number is definitely impressive. And I think it's going to be a good game. I can't see that being a blowout either when those two teams have both played that well in their own conference this entire season. So
well, good. Well, I think that about does it. 20-some games again we're going to be covering this weekend. Please look us up for this podcast on YouTube. Check out the woodtv.com website. And thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.